My wife and head of security spent 2 years plotting my disappearance, down to the moment my car would vanish off a mountain road. What they didn't realize, I was watching them the entire time and planning my return. The late morning sun filtered through the towering windows of Nathan Drake's executive office, casting angled shadows across the dark grain of his polished walnut desk. At 47, Nathan had long mastered the art of focus, channeling decades of military strategy and corporate maneuvering into one of the nation's most powerful defense firms, Altair Systems. The numbers on his latest quarterly report glowed steady on the screen, a portrait of precision and performance. Everything was running according to plan, until the phone rang. The display read, Boone Auto Diagnostics. That alone was enough to still Nathan's hand. Elijah Boone had never called him directly, not once in their 12 years of professional cooperation. Elijah was efficient, discreet, and proud. A call from him could only mean something had gone wrong. Nathan answered with his usual controlled tone, his voice calm despite the tension that immediately coiled in his chest. Elijah's message was brief but deeply unsettling. The digital logs from Nathan's armored company vehicle had been tampered with. Maintenance entries bore forged authentication, advanced enough to slip past regular systems but not Boone's upgraded trace verification process. According to the logs, the changes originated from Altair's internal security network. A chill moved through Nathan, sharp and quiet. 3 months ago, his wife Lena had insisted on routing all vehicle servicing through Altair's security department, citing safety concerns and brand consistency. It had felt overly formal at the time, but Nathan hadn't questioned it. She'd always cared about appearances, and he had been too absorbed in high-level negotiations to give it much thought. Now that decision loomed in his mind like a puzzle piece clicking into place. He ended the call with Elijah quickly, asking for the logs to be sent through an encrypted channel and kept confidential. Elijah agreed without hesitation. Loyalty had a certain weight when tested. Nathan's fingers hovered over the keyboard as he opened the file. His background in cyberintelligence served him well as he scanned through lines of code and metadata. The forgery was subtle, nearly flawless, but whoever had executed it had left behind traceable errors, outdated hash protocols and mismatched device signatures, signs of either arrogance or overconfidence. He leaned back in his chair, staring past the glass at the skyline of Fairmont City. The world outside seemed ordinary, serene, but inside, the truth was unraveling in silence. His thoughts were interrupted by a soft knock. Lena stepped into the room in a fitted beige dress, her blonde hair pulled into a neat bun. She smiled, as poised as ever, speaking of upcoming meetings and the next board session scheduled at a remote location. The route's already secured, she added, referencing Altair's head of security. Travis insists on the mountain bypass again. It's safer, apparently. Nathan nodded, careful to keep his expression unreadable. Travis Shaw had been instrumental in building their internal threat prevention network, a man whose resume included Black Ops logistics and corporate counterintel. Trustworthy, or so Nathan had believed. Lena's perfume lingered as she left the room. It was different, new and expensive, not her usual subtle floral scent. A gift? A celebration? The rest of the afternoon blurred through scheduled calls, strategic memos, and back-to-back digital briefings. But Nathan's mind stayed tethered to the signature mismatch, to Lena's careful phrases, to Travis's overconfident smirks. That evening, Nathan skipped the charity gala Lena had organized. Instead, he worked from his private study. By 10, the estate was quiet, cloaked in autumn stillness. Security feeds flickered silently across the secondary monitor. Nothing unusual, until a soft flicker from the pool house camera caught his eye. The timestamp read 22:41. He clicked in. 2 figures. Dim light. Audio, faint but recoverable. Nathan watched. Travis's voice, measured and composed, spoke of mechanical failures, brake systems, altitude triggers. Lena responded in low tones, amused and dismissive. The plan was simple. A tragic accident during a sharp downhill curve on the bypass en route to the next board session. A story of high-speed failure, media distraction, and pre-written grief. His name surfaced, along with mentions of the life insurance payout, $60 million, and board approval for interim control. The successor? Travis Shaw, under Lena's supportive guidance. The audio continued, laced with derision, as they spoke of Nathan in past tense. His focus, his absence, his failure to see what was in front of him. Nathan said nothing. He recorded it all. When the feed ended, he sat still, hands clasped before him, as if analyzing a case file from long ago. There was no outburst, no fury, just calculation. He knew this world too well. Reaction was dangerous. Strategy, however, that was survival. He didn't sleep that night. Instead, he reached out, through a private channel encrypted beyond even Alteris's firewalls, to the one person he trusted beyond protocol. Margot Lane, FBI special agent, counterintelligence, and the only one who ever saw Nathan Drake not as a CEO or a defense titan, but as a man who once thought trust was strength. And now, he knew better. By dawn, the framework was already forming in Nathan Drake's mind. Every conversation, every glance from Lena, every evasive response from Travis Shaw now made sense under a different light. It wasn't just betrayal. It was architecture, a carefully constructed operation designed to kill a man who had built a defense empire from nothing. But Nathan hadn't survived military operations, internal audits, and corporate espionage by being naive. He knew better than to confront. Silence was more valuable than truth when the stakes were this high. By midday, he had contacted Margot Lane. Their connection went back decades, university case competitions, shared late-night debates about national security, and later paths that diverged into government and private sectors. She was now with the FBI's Counterintelligence and Internal Corruption Division. Trusted, discreet, and relentless. Margot responded within an hour. No pleasantries, no disbelief, just quiet confirmation and a single instruction. Stay normal. Let them believe they've won. The plan had to unfold in layers. First came the evidence curation. Elijah Boone, unaware of the full context, continued to forward diagnostics, photos, and time-stamped video logs from his auto shop. Everything aligned. Travis had authorized high-level overrides on vehicle security, access normally reserved for senior executive operations. It wasn't just tampering. It was preparation for assassination. Then came the timeline. The accident was scheduled to occur during an upcoming board meeting at a mountaintop retreat outside of Denver. An isolated road with narrow shoulders, sharp switchbacks, and few witnesses. Perfect cover. Nathan's task was to follow the schedule precisely. He mentioned brake trouble in casual passing to Lena. Her concern was immediate but practiced. Within hours, Travis had scheduled an after-hours inspection. Nathan played along, even as FBI surveillance drones quietly circled overhead, capturing every tool, every movement. The deeper they looked, the worse the truth became. Travis Shaw had a pattern. Employment records at 3 previous firms. All high-level defense contractors. All with sudden executive deaths attributed to mechanical failure or pilot error. The FBI had reopened 2 cold cases within 48 hours. And Lena Blake, his wife of 8 years, was more than complicit. Her private devices revealed a disturbing trail of encrypted correspondence, asset transfers to overseas accounts, and private conversations with rival defense groups interested in Alteris's technologies. Nathan's classified work, designed to protect national infrastructure, was being sold piece by piece. Margot's team moved fast. Surveillance was installed throughout the estate. Communication logs were intercepted. Their objective wasn't just to prevent the attack. It was to complete it, or rather, let it appear complete. That's when the idea emerged. Nathan wouldn't avoid the accident. He would stage it. A simulated crash, complete with a remote-controlled duplicate of his SUV, detailed telemetry disruption, and timed media leaks. An illusion of death designed not to shock but to expose. The risk was immense. Any misstep, any broken illusion, and the entire operation would collapse. But Nathan agreed without hesitation. Over the next 5 days, every movement was rehearsed. Every camera placement, every satellite trigger, Every secondary feed calibrated to capture what Lena and Travis believed would be Nathan's final drive. The FBI constructed an exact replica of his vehicle using the same model, license plate, and superficial wear and tear. Explosives were replaced with flash igniters and pyrotechnics, designed to mimic combustion without fatal consequence. A body double was briefly considered, but Nathan refused. "They planned this for me," he said. "Let them believe they succeeded." On the morning of the board retreat, everything moved according to script. Nathan kissed Lena on the cheek as she pretended to scroll through a fundraising agenda. Travis had already conducted the final safety check the night before. At precisely 9:47 a.m., the decoy vehicle turned onto the winding mountain pass. 20 minutes later, it launched off a predetermined edge, rolling down an embankment. The timed explosion lit up the nearby cliffs. Fire teams arrived on cue. Drone coverage from civilians already planted by FBI teams captured footage that would be broadcasted across national news within the hour. By 10:15, Nathan Drake was declared deceased. Margot Lane watched it all unfold from a secure mobile command unit. Her team intercepted Lena's first grief message sent to the board, her second to an offshore account manager, and the third, most damning of all, to Travis. "It's done." Nathan watched in silence from the passenger seat of a low-profile bureau vehicle. No words.
No emotion.
Just measured breathing and the slow unfolding of his enemy's arrogance. His phone vibrated. A message from Lena. "So sorry about the delay, darling. I'll see you at the board meeting. Love you." Nathan turned to Margot. "The grieving widow is on schedule." She didn't smile. "And the would-be CEO? He'll be waiting in my office," Nathan said quietly, thinking he's already won. But the only thing they'd won was the opportunity to perform their betrayal on the largest stage imaginable. And Nathan Drake was about to return for the final act. The news broke faster than the FBI had predicted. Within an hour of the simulated crash, major networks had picked up footage from the drone feeds planted along the mountain pass. The flaming wreckage, the billowing smoke, the stillness of the hillside. The headlines followed: Defense Executive Nathan Drake dies in tragic car accident. Alt-Era Systems CEO killed in crash before critical board vote. Sources confirm. Mechanical failure may be to blame. Margot Lane stood in the FBI's mobile command center, watching the chaos ripple outward. Her team monitored every data point in real time: financial transfers, phone logs, news commentary. And at the center of it all, Lena Blake and Travis Shaw were beginning their final performance. At the Alteris headquarters, Travis took control with clinical calm. He addressed the executive team with practiced grief, making statements about Nathan's legacy of innovation, vowing to uphold the company's mission in his honor. The board, confused and shaken, leaned on the one man who had always spoken with certainty. Lena, meanwhile, played the grieving widow with exacting precision. Dressed in black, she appeared at a charity event where cameras followed her every move. Her expression, vacant yet dignified, was designed for media. And it worked. Interviews circulated within hours. Sound bites, quiet tears, a hand placed gently over her heart. What the world saw was a tragedy. What the FBI recorded was a masterpiece of deception. Behind the scenes, transfers had already begun. Lena's offshore accounts lit up with incoming deposits. Travis, using an internal proxy system, began communicating with international buyers for Alteris's next-generation encryption technology. It was all going according to their design. Except Nathan wasn't dead. He watched everything from a secure FBI suite in downtown Chicago, surrounded by monitors and feeds. Each frame showed the people he had once trusted, lying, stealing, repositioning themselves over his grave. It would have been unbearable had he not been prepared. Instead, it only sharpened his resolve. The final trap had to be perfect. Margot's team finalized the event plan, a memorial service, public, televised, and formal. The board insisted on it. Lena agreed instantly. It was the final act she had long prepared for, one last opportunity to be seen as the dignified, shattered widow standing before the industry that once belonged to her husband. The service took place at the historic St. Alaric Cathedral in the heart of Fairmont City. Marble floors, stained glass windows, broadcast vans lined the surrounding streets. Defense contractors, government officials, tech executives, all gathered to pay tribute. Inside a sleek mahogany casket at the altar, Nathan lay perfectly still, his pulse calm, his breathing measured. Hidden beneath the velvet lining, tiny fiber-optic cables transmitted real-time audio and camera feeds to the command center. The final trap was set. The service began. Speeches were made. Praise was given. Lena stood at the podium, voice trembling as she recited a carefully crafted eulogy. Her tears came right on cue. She spoke of Nathan's brilliance, his devotion, his sacrifice. Nathan listened to every word. In the back row, FBI agents monitored the room. Facial recognition systems confirmed the presence of several executives tied to rival defense firms, ones who had recently appeared in Lena's encrypted communications. Surveillance teams had already begun tracking them days earlier. Now they were all under one roof. At last came the final viewing. One by one, guests approached the open casket to pay their respects. Hidden cameras documented each reaction. Some offered genuine sorrow. Others gave nothing more than a glance. And then came Lena. She approached slowly, eyes red, lips quivering. Travis followed closely behind, his hand grazing her back. Too familiar for a man who was simply there to support a widow. They stopped at the casket. "He looks peaceful," Lena whispered, her voice low enough for the hidden mic to capture. "It's almost over," Travis murmured beside her. "By the end of the week, you'll have everything." Nathan opened his eyes. The reaction was immediate. Lena staggered back. Travis froze, his hand dropping as if burned. Gasps echoed through the cathedral. Cameras, still rolling, caught the exact moment disbelief gave way to panic. FBI agents closed in. Margot Lane stepped from the back of the cathedral, flashing her badge. "Everyone, please remain seated. You are all witnesses in an ongoing federal investigation." Chaos followed. Travis attempted to flee but was tackled within seconds. Lena turned, her expression shattered. No longer the widow, no longer in control. Nathan stood from the casket slowly, adjusting his tie. The silence was suffocating. He looked at the woman who had shared his home, his name, and plotted his death. "Surprised to see me, Lena?" She couldn't answer. Her expression had crumbled into something almost unrecognizable. "You should be," he continued calmly, "because while you were planning my death, I was planning your arrest." The cameras kept rolling. The headlines the next day didn't speak of grief or tragedy. They told the story of betrayal, conspiracy, and a resurrection that rewrote the rules of corporate justice. And Nathan Drake wasn't done yet. The aftermath of Nathan Drake's dramatic reappearance sent shockwaves across the nation. Footage of his emergence from the casket aired on every major news outlet. What began as a fabricated tragedy had transformed into the year's most explosive scandal. A global defense CEO rising from the dead to expose a conspiracy that reached into the highest levels of corporate and government alliances. The FBI moved quickly. Within hours of the memorial service, Lena Blake and Travis Shaw were formally charged with attempted murder, conspiracy, espionage, and large-scale financial fraud. Their offshore accounts were frozen, private communications decrypted, their entire network of partners, domestic and foreign, placed under immediate investigation. Nathan sat quietly in the observation room as Margot Lane and her team conducted the first interrogations. Lena, no longer composed, broke within days. Her once practiced grace gave way to disoriented panic, and under the pressure of mounting evidence, she shifted the blame. "He manipulated me," she claimed. Travis said Nathan was a threat to national security, that he was hiding illegal programs. "I did it to protect the company. To protect us." The FBI had already recovered months of surveillance. High-definition footage from the pool house, audio recordings of detailed planning, tampered brake lines, and financial records connecting Lena and Travis to shadow entities in Prague, Singapore, and Sao Paulo. Her words meant nothing. Travis, on the other hand, remained silent for over a week. Stoic, calculating, clinging to whatever control he thought remained. But the agents were prepared. They presented his involvement in 3 prior corporate accidents. All CEOs, all sudden deaths, all with financial spikes in hidden shell companies linked to him. Faced with undeniable connections and betrayal from Lena herself, Travis finally snapped. She wanted him gone before the board vote. I executed the plan, but she pulled the strings. She knew everything. Their alliance shattered under pressure. Their mutual distrust became a weapon the FBI turned against them. Each blamed the other. Each revealed more than they should. As their statements conflicted, the investigation grew larger. Nathan's legal team worked in tandem with the Bureau to uncover a web of corruption that extended deep into the defense industry. Former board members were questioned. Several high-ranking executives were indicted for insider dealings, information leaks, and bribery. The conspiracy wasn't isolated, it was systemic. Nathan, though central to the case, remained calm and collected throughout. He returned to Altera Systems not with vengeance, but with purpose. At the next emergency board session, he arrived early, placing confidential reports in front of each executive's seat. "Your resignations are expected by noon," he said coldly. "Those who comply will exit with dignity. Those who resist will be publicly named in the ongoing investigation." By the end of the hour, only Nathan remained in the boardroom. With Lena and Travis awaiting trial and the company's leadership gutted, Nathan initiated a full-scale reform. Working closely with the FBI and cybersecurity leaders, he introduced a new internal framework, the Drake Protocol, a system built on zero-trust architecture, real-time oversight, and third-party redundancy. The idea was simple. Loyalty could no longer be assumed. Only verified behavior, observed through transparent systems, would earn trust. The industry took notice. Within months, government agencies began adopting elements of the Drake Protocol. Other corporations followed. Nathan's near-death experience had evolved into the blueprint for a new era of internal corporate security, one where prevention didn't rely on character, but on code, systems, and unbreakable verification. Meanwhile, Lena's trial began. Courtrooms were packed. Cameras recorded her every reaction. She arrived in subdued attire, far from the elegance she once wore on red carpets. Her testimony faltered under cross-examination, and every time she deflected blame, prosecutors presented evidence. Her voice whispering plans of sabotage, her digital signature authorizing illicit transfers. Travis's trial ran in parallel. His defense argued coercion, past trauma, anything to deflect intent. But his own documentation, painstakingly archived, became the prosecution's most damning tool. The final blow came from Elijah Boone, whose simple maintenance logs and personal integrity had exposed the first crack. His testimony detailed how slight mismatches in system signatures revealed a plot that not even the most advanced counterintelligence systems had flagged. When asked how he noticed it, he simply said, "If something doesn't feel right, I double-check." That's what saved his life. Nathan watched from a reserved seat in the courtroom as Lena was sentenced to life imprisonment without parole. Travis received multiple sentences tied to 3 prior murders, espionage, and conspiracy. They would never walk free again. Back at Alteris, Nathan gathered his core team. Margot stood beside him. Elijah was there too, no longer a mechanic, but the new head of corporate integrity. The transformation was complete. Alteris, once a fortress built on presumed loyalty, was now a symbol of rebuilt trust. Not the fragile, blind kind that had nearly cost Nathan his life, but the kind forged through accountability, transparency, and the refusal to ever look away again. 5 years passed. Altera Systems, once a name whispered behind closed doors in defense circles, now stood at the forefront of global corporate security. Not because of its technology, though its innovations remained unmatched, but because of the philosophy that had emerged from betrayal. What Lena Blake and Travis Shaw had planned as a perfect crime had inadvertently sparked a revolution. The Drake Protocol, born from deception and sharpened by necessity, had evolved into the cornerstone of modern corporate resilience. No longer just a policy, it had become a culture. Dual verification systems, behavioral audits, decentralized oversight, and psychological resilience training were now standard across dozens of Fortune 500 companies and government defense contractors worldwide. And it had started with a man who'd been left for dead by the people he trusted most. Nathan Drake stood quietly in the new Altaris headquarters, a towering steel and glass structure built just outside of Fairmont City. Its lobby housed a permanent installation, a museum-style exhibit titled Truth's Turn, named after the very bend in the road where his life had been meant to end. Visitors passed maintenance logs, audio recordings, digital diagrams of tampered brake lines. Each piece wasn't just forensic evidence. It was a reminder of what unchecked ambition and misplaced trust could lead to. Nearby, a framed copy of Elijah Boone's handwritten note to Nathan, simple, direct, and suspicious of the original forgery, sat beneath the spotlight. Above it, a plaque read, "Integrity often hides in small places." Elijah, now the company's chief integrity officer, had become a legend in his own right. His rise from auto technician to the highest levels of international corporate security served as proof that character, not credentials, was what truly safeguarded an institution. Nathan and Margot Lane had married quietly, well away from the cameras that had once documented every phase of the scandal. Their twin daughters, Ella and Nora, were now 10. Bright, curious, grounded. They had never met Lena. They didn't need to. What they knew was enough. That their father had survived something no one should ever have to, and that their mother had helped stop a criminal network that once thought it could outsmart the law. At home, Nathan rarely spoke of Lena, but each year, on the anniversary of the false memorial service, he took a drive alone to Truth's Turn. The curve in the road had been repaved, guardrails reinforced, and a digital marker added to GPS systems' warning of the slope. Next to the curve, a single line engraved in stone read, "Here a lie ended, and something stronger began." Meanwhile, inside Hazleton Federal Institution's maximum security wing, Lena Blake remained incarcerated. Time had worn away her polished facade. The woman who once graced magazine covers in designer gowns now wore standard-issue gray. Her privileges were limited, her legal appeals denied. Surveillance logs confirmed that even in prison, she had attempted to manipulate, to reach out to old contacts, to rebuild a network. Each time the FBI intercepted. Margot, now deputy director of the Bureau's Internal Crimes Division, maintained a special unit devoted entirely to corporate subversion. Travis Shaw had died in prison the previous year during an altercation. His past finally caught up with him, not in the boardroom or courtroom, but in the very isolation he had once planned for others. His death made little news. His story had become a cautionary tale in leadership ethics seminars. Rarely named, never glorified. Nathan's lectures, however, were required viewing. He spoke annually at the FBI Academy in Quantico, walking young agents through the Drake conspiracy. From the first digital anomaly to the day he rose from the coffin, each detail had become part of a case study that reshaped investigative training worldwide. Betrayal doesn't come with a warning, he often told his audience. It comes as routine, as affection, as routine familiarity. Behind him, projected onto the screen, would be the grainy pool house footage. The smug certainty in Lena's voice. The technical language Travis used to describe brake failures. The silent understanding between them that Nathan would be dead before the next board meeting. But he wasn't, and that changed everything. At home, Ella and Nora had started a school project on ethical leadership. Their subject? Their father. They asked questions about trust, about danger, about how someone survives what he went through. Nathan answered gently, never with bitterness. He taught them that real strength came not from revenge, but from transformation. Not from avoiding betrayal, but from facing it and ensuring it could never happen again. That was his legacy. Not Altaris. Not even the protocol that now bore his name. But two girls who would grow up understanding that integrity was not inherited, it was chosen. And that the strongest leaders were those who never stopped asking, "Who's watching the watcher?" And as the sun set over Fairmont City, casting long shadows over the glass walls of the Altaris Tower, Nathan Drake remained exactly who he had always been, quiet, unshaken, and always 3 steps ahead.